So, what about a yellow? Yeah, what do you mean? This is deep drop, yellowtail.
So when we had our little competition a couple weekends ago,
Yep.
I anchor up on a yellowtail spot
Hmm.
and put 2 blocks of chum out. Wait, throw some oats, throw some more chum. Still have 2 blocks in the water. We're 75 feet off of the spot, off the waypoint I wanted to hit.
Okay.
Gave it 2 hours almost. Ate some sandwiches. We were just really relaxed. We weren't really fired up yet.
All right.
Caught a cobia, caught some other stuff, but no yellowtails.
How deep is it?
75 feet.
Okay.
We moved the anchor 100 feet.
Why? Because you weren't on your numbers.
We're on the number. As soon as we got the anchor stuck, 25, 30 minutes later, after the chum did its thing, the yellowtails were chewing off the bag.
Okay.
75, 100 feet made the difference.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you this question.
Hit me with it.
You really believe that it was a 75-foot difference, or you believe that the fish started biting because the current changed, or increased a quarter of a knot, which made them start biting?
It was still incoming tide,
Okay.
so the tide never changed.
Okay.
I think where we were positioned,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was off the ledge just enough to where, 100 feet's 100 feet.
It's a long way.
It's a long way.
It is a long way.
It doesn't. You don't think it's a long way when you're bottom fishing.
No, that's a true statement.
And I have done plenty of bottom fishing to where I'm like, they're just not biting.
Right.
Well, I don't think I was close enough to the spot. And ever since that day,
Yeah.
I'll never think that again.
Right, because of that. Okay, so now.
So let's say there was a ledge 100 feet away.
Yes.
100 feet's far. You know what I mean?
I say this in sword fishing all of the time. 100 feet?
We legitimately moved 100 feet,
Yeah.
and I went from saying, I guess we're not going to catch too many fish today,
To fill in the freight. You guys filled the boat.
to filling the boat.
All right.
The best trip I've ever had.
So what does that tell? Okay, that's an experience that you had.
Yeah.
Now I want you to explain to the crew members on this platform what you would do in the future. You know, how does it change your mindset? I know you're
So
saying
my mindset was that obviously my chum wasn't going over the coral heads that we fish around. If the chum goes over it, it raises the fish up to the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously being 100 feet off,
Mm-hmm.
that chum was just going into no man's land.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we were lucky enough a cobia came up behind the boat and we caught that. And we caught some queen triggers. But we knew there's yellowtails in this area we
Sure.
were fishing.
Yes.
And most people would be like, I guess that yellowtails aren't biting today.
Okay, well, which leads into why we're talking about this scenario, right? So this is interesting. So now you're talking about 70 feet of water and you're talking about snapper fishing. In terms of deep dropping, in the scenario that we're talking about here, now I'm in 200 feet of water. I'm in 500 feet of water, I'm in 7 for a queen, or I'm in 11 for a mystic grouper. And I go, I'm dropping, and I'm dropping on the exact same numbers that I dropped on last trip.
Correct.
And I'm not getting bit. And I'm going to fish for what's happening?
Your drift is probably different from the last trip.
Okay.
I've had that plenty of times.
Yes.
You have a number, okay, and you caught them 2 days in a row, it was blowing northeast. Then you go a couple weekends later and it's blowing west. You're drifting completely different.
Correct.
Whether you're motoring into the wind or not, you think you're hitting the same patch of,
Because you're looking at it.
because you're looking at
Your
it.
approach is different to the spot.
But if your approach is completely different,
Yes.
you might have been hitting the corner of the ledge last time, well now you're on top of it or completely off of it.
Correct. Quicker.
Yeah.
So it's not a tide. Is it a tide thing? Everyone says, wait a minute, they're not biting because the tide's not right. I don't care what, I'm just going to give you this. And if you said the worst, I'll pose a question to you and answer the question. I went out deep dropping and I've caught the least amount of bottom fish on the deep drop with what tide? A, high tide, B, low tide, C, slack tide, or D, none of the above. You've caught least amount of fish on what tide?
High tide.
Is that true for you?
Yeah.
Me, it's no tide. So I have an opinion based on experience, and you have an opinion based on experience. To me, it was always the slackness of the tide, maybe allowing the fish to spread a bit. Now, I don't care if that's in a half a knot tide. That's still a lot to a fish, right?
Agreed.
But you have an opinion, and I have opinion on a tide. Now, I can tell you, I'm going to switch gears with you. I'm going to say, we're going wahoo fishing tomorrow, and what tide is the best? High, low, mid, outgoing, or incoming?
Outgoing.
Outgoing, right?
Yeah.
So you'd have to say outgoing. I did a film with you on the platform called Tide. We were off of Orange on the outgoing tide.
Yep.
Didn't catch a fish. The tide switched, and we caught. That particular day was on the outgoing tide. Now, yes, is there a stereotypical tide for a fish?
Always.
I would say, yeah. A snook is at an inlet is on a.
Outgoing.
Can you catch them on incoming? Yes, but the water's cleaner. It's a totally different thing. Stereotypically is what is the kind of the standard that you'd think. To me, it's slack tide, worst. Wahoo fishing, outgoing tide, best. Slack tide, worst. Now, most people go to the Bahamas and they go wahoo fishing. And they go wahoo fishing, and all of a sudden the wahoo fishing slows down, and they go, well, I'm going to go deep dropping to fill the time. Problem is, on a slack tide, you just stopped wahoo fishing, and you probably went on the worst time to bottom fish.
Correct.
Here's the flip side of it. I've caught bottom fish on a slack tide, and I've caught wahoo on the incoming tide all the time. So again, you can't really go by that and live by that. Kind of like what you're talking about. You moved 100 feet. It made a difference. No difference than the guys years ago saying, you caught 5 swordfish and I was right there next to you. And I say to myself, dude, you were 0.2 of a mile from me. You weren't even in the game. There was a school of squid right there. And if you didn't hit the school of squid that was as wide as this section, you didn't catch one. You were completely out of the game. So understand, you're either in the game right here, snapper fishing, or you're out of it. What does that mean? Don't be lazy. He wasn't lazy. He knew you caught fish there before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's your spot. The other thing, lastly, I'm going to say about, which is really, really cool about deep dropping, Scott Sansone. Scott Sansone, Jerry, who used to own Caribbean Canvas, and Fink spent a lot of time off Isaacs deep dropping. They're deep drop guys. Charles Cluck, Moish, Fink's dad. These guys are old school droppers. All they want to do is drop, kind of like you, Jeff, behind the camera. Love dropping. Really good at it. And so we'll go there, right? And so you're exactly right, man. Because I looked at my machine. The last time I was there, the drift was this way. Let's say this was the spot we were catching them on. The drift was this way. I was going south to northeast. Now, I'm southwest going to northeast, not northwest. So now instead of approaching the spot from this way, I'm approaching the spot this way, and I'm not getting bites, right? So you're not getting bites on the numbers. Remember, these are the numbers right here where you got fish. And let's just say it was an area this big, right? Here's the thing about, and the last to end the film on. When you deal in snowies, not on a physical wreck. You deal with queens, not on a wreck. You deal with mystic, snowies, queens, you deal with that type of fish. Those fish are ridge fish. Those fish are moving fish. Those fish generally are not on one spot. They're traveling up and down a ridge. The ridge holds the fish. Those fish travel it. No different than a mutton snapper on a wreck, circumnavigating the wreck. Those snappers move around. Those groupers move around if they're not wreck-based. Muddy bottom, cool area, kind of like Goldens.
Yep.
They're in an area. They're not on a single spot. So don't get frustrated, and don't be afraid to start over there. You're not getting. Obviously you want to do 2 or 3 kind of drops. All right, let me take a drop here. Let me take a drop here, over here, and over here. Now they're really not biting. Let's go back and do something else. Fish move around, especially the fish I'm telling you have a tendency to move. Less so with a yellow eye snapper.
Correct.
Yellow eye snapper,
They sit.
they seem to be more spot specific, let's call it. Yellowtail that you're talking, spot specific. John B, spot specific. Queen snapper, spot specific if on a certain type of structure, but for where we're talking about, they're shifty. They're moving around. And again, formulate your own thought process when it comes to what's best for you. Me, slack tide, it's usually when we go deep drop, and sometimes it's not effective. I think it has to do with the tide. I don't really know. All I know is we go.
Correct.
And it is what it is. I hope you enjoyed it. Another deep drop discussion about cool things. And, again, if you have something to throw into the mix, maybe something that works for you or didn't, reach out to us. We appreciate your time.